Okay, only 2 more days of these exponent rules, I promise. And today's actually the last day with the actual rules. So in math, there is a big rule, there's a law, that you cannot have negative exponents. So if you have negative exponents, you have to rewrite the expression or whatever's going on there with positive exponents. So you can have negative numbers, can't have negative exponents. So if you have a negative exponent, and this is like x to the negative a, we'll say like over 1, what happens is they flip-flop spots. So now it becomes 1 over, if the negative exponent is in the top of the fraction, when you put it in the bottom of the fraction, it miraculously becomes positive. Same thing is true if you have like y or 1 over x to the negative a. So if you have a negative exponent on bottom, you flip-flop spots, and the minute you flip-flop spots, it becomes positive. So you cannot have negative exponents. If you have you can have negative numbers, no negative exponent. So if you have a negative exponent, you have to either put it on the bottom or put it on the top, depending on where it's negative at, and then you're good to go. So let's take a look at a couple of examples here. We have x to the negative 5th. So all of these right here, I will always put a 1 underneath them, just because I have a feeling we're going to be flipping things, and that way it'll make it easier when I have to flip it or move things around. So x to the negative 5 is in the top of my fraction. I don't want it to be to the negative 5. I want it to be to the positive. So I flip-flop, and I get 1 over x to the 5th. And it's positive. And you're done. So number 2, the 3, so you kind of have to take a look at each little chunk as well. The 3 does not have a negative exponent, so the 3 gets to stay where it's at. The m to the negative 2, that has a negative exponent. It's on top, so you need to move it to the bottom, and it becomes positive. Now the 1 does come up top, but it's going to be 1 times 3, which is 3. So that's why you can leave it just like that. Number 3. So we're going to write my fraction here. Negative 7. This negative 7 does not have a negative exponent, so that can stay where it's at. A is raised to the negative 4th. It's on top, so I'm going to put it in the bottom to make it positive. And then b cubed does not have a negative exponent, so it stays put as well. And that's it. Let me show you a couple with some operations going on here. So if we take a look at this one right here, we do have multiplication going on. When you multiply, that means that you add your exponents. So we get W7 plus negative 9 is negative 2. Well, you can't have a negative exponent, and it's on bottom, so we have to, it's on top, so we have to put it on the bottom, and then 1 comes to the top. And we do write the 1 in this case because there would have been nothing else up top with it. Number 5, we do have multiplication going on today again. So when you multiply your numbers. 4 times 5 is 20. And then when you multiply your variables, you add their exponents. C times C gives you another C. 8 plus negative 5 is 3, which is positive. That's a good thing. D and D will give you another D. Negative 3 plus negative 1 is negative 4. So now we do have a negative exponent. So this is the only thing that moves. Everything else stays put. So you have 20c cubed. They stay put where they're at. This d to the negative 4th flip-flop spots, and it becomes positive. So you will have fractions. It's totally fine. Don't freak out. Let's take a look at this one. So we have multiplication. So we multiply the numbers. 6 times negative 3 is negative 18. X to the negative 8th times x to the negative 3rd. Add your exponents. Negative 8 plus negative 3 is negative 11. So I have a fraction here. This negative 18 by itself does not have a negative exponent, so it can stay put. X is being raised to the negative 11th, so it needs to go in the other spot, and it becomes positive. I don't think I really need to do this one. I think that we've kind of exhausted that. Let's take a look at some division problems. So when you divide when you divide, remember that you subtract your exponents. So h squared divided by h to the fifth ends up giving you h to the negative third. Okay, but remember, you can't have negative exponents, so this comes down to the bottom, and you get 1 over h cubed. So just flip-flop spots. So for 13, again, we're going to divide, so which means we're going to subtract our exponents, and whenever you subtract, they do go up top at first. So we get c and c, so we get a new c. Negative 2 minus 7 is negative 9. Negative 1, oh, and then we have dd, so we'll get a new d. Negative 1 minus negative 2. Negative 1 minus negative 2 is the same thing as negative 1 plus 2, which is a 1. Now, the only one of these that has a negative exponent is c. So d to the first stays on the top, c to the ninth goes on the bottom. And then same thing with like number 14 here. So divide the numbers. 14 divided by 7 is 2. W to the fourth divided by w to the negative 2. Remember, you subtract your exponents. 4 minus negative 2. 4 minus negative 2. Double negative is a positive. So we get w to the sixth. But you guys, there's no negative exponent, so we're good there. So main thing is just make sure that if you have a negative exponent, you've got to move it to the bottom or move it to the top, depending on where it's at. But move things around a little bit to get rid of those negative exponents. Like I said, any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.